Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. We are live. We're live on LinkedIn. We are live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. We have Mona Akmal with us. How are you, Mona?
I'm doing really well. It's good to be here, Johnny.
Thanks for joining us. You're CEO and co-founder of Falkon AI. Falcon AI is the first intelligence platform for the entire GTM team. That's go-to-market team. You Microsoft background. You were at Microsoft for what, 12 years?
That's right.
Is that what's given you the grounding?
Absolutely. I mean, I think of my training at Microsoft pretty much every day as I'm company building. But, I realized 12 years of being in Microsoft that I'm much more of a builder than I am a maintainer. And that's why, I'm uniquely suited to the dysfunction that is company building.
And I mean, well, in your early days, you moved from Pakistan to the US with just three things. You were an undergrad, you had an undergrad degree, an engineering job at Microsoft, and a network of entirely zero people.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I now I look back and I am shocked by that kid who showed up at age 20 and realized that people drove on the wrong side of the road in the US because I'd never been here before. It took me 3 hours to get to my rental apartment, and I ended up in the ER that day because I was so stressed out. I have a lot of compassion and empathy for that young kid that showed up in the US 24 years ago.
Wow. In terms of Falcon, you're working with some seriously big businesses. Let's just name drop a few just to give listeners and people that are watching a bit of an idea.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have worked with some really fantastic customers like Zendesk is one of our hero customers. Redis Labs, which is, the pioneer in real-time databases, is another fantastic customer. Entrust, one of the largest cybersecurity companies, is another customer. Remitly, massive fintech company, they recently IPO'd. They help, immigrants send remittances home, is another phenomenal customer. And we were very selective in the early years of Falcon to work with customers that were very sophisticated and were very demanding, because we knew if we could make them happy, then we could bring a really A+ product to the market to serve the rest of the market.
And you're typically working with fast-growing, hyper-growth, perhaps startups, or maybe they are mature but have a new product that is growing fast. Let's just get into how. Well, what I'm interested in is what are they getting wrong? What are they not doing in terms of when they're taking a product to market? What are they typically getting wrong where you come in and solve that problem? So what's their mistakes?
Yeah, so I would say that I have had an interesting work experience in that half of my professional life has been in building consumer software applications, and the other half has been in building B2B software application services. And consumer is honestly light years ahead in terms of automation, in terms of being data driven, in terms of personalization to their prospects as well as their customers. And my insight was that how businesses sell to businesses is still stuck in the dark ages. It's still predominantly gut driven, instinct driven. It's very human led. There's data is really used to report on the business. It's not really used to run the business. And so I would say our predominant value add to any company is to truly make them more data driven so that they can maximize customer happiness and revenue generation in the most efficient way possible. And how we do that is by taking all their disconnected data, joining it, turning it into insight, and then using that insight to automate workflows that their Salesforce and their marketing teams are doing manually right now.
And So yeah, I'm hearing that you're plugging quite a big gap there. And what was really interesting though was that whole the story about consumer, because I absolutely agree with you that B2B is just so far behind, and all B2B needs to do is look at retail, look at commerce, look at e-commerce,
Mhm.
and just learn.
Mhm.
And I've got a retail background as well. Actually, I was in retail for about maybe 15 years.
Mhm.
Uh, and so, I got that grounding in retail, and it's so true that, it, whatever happens in the consumer market eventually comes into the B2B market, and you just need to embrace it. So yeah, it's really interesting that you that you mentioned that. What are some of the best practices then for product led growth? What's the key things to focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, for all the hype that product led growth has had, it's still pretty early days. And most sales forces and marketing teams within B2B SaaS companies are struggling to understand what it truly means. As a frame of reference, half of our team is early people from Dropbox, and Dropbox was one of the pioneers of the product led growth motion. It didn't even have a name back then, right? And the superpower, the ultimate thing about product led growth, to me, it's not about whether you have a free trial or not. It's not about whether you have an upsell or a cross sell path. It is basically the premise that your end user and the value they get out of your product is going to be the biggest indicator of your success and your ability to generate revenue. In essence, that is what product led growth means, right? And so, as a data company and as someone who's very passionate about data, to me, the biggest best practice or the biggest thing for B2B SaaS companies to focus on is how are they going to join their product usage data to get a better understanding of their ideal customers and how to approach them in hyper personalized ways and do it at scale. As a frame of reference, when I used to run the store team at Zulily, which is an e-commerce retailer, the entire Zulily website was highly personalized. So if you showed up to Zulily and I showed up to Zulily.com, we would get completely different experiences because, and it wasn't like there were people in the background changing the website for you.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, I was insane. There would
Quick,
be no.
Mona's here. Quick, change.
Exactly. Mona likes tutus, so let's show her tutus. So, that kind of harnessing of product usage data in marketing and sales and up leveling sales and marketing teams within SaaS companies to understand how to use product data, to me, is the biggest opportunity that exists out there. And it's actually, I still am very saddened and shocked by how many marketing leaders invest millions of dollars in leveraging intent data, which is garbage, which is absolute garbage. To me, intent data is like reading your horoscope. If you believe in horoscopes, you should believe in intent data. But the asset that you have, which is your customer data and how they're using your product, is just left on the cutting room floor. So that's the one area that I would really encourage people to invest in, leveraging their product data for marketing and sales.
And I guess that goes back to customer happiness, because if you're focused on the end user,
Mhm.
then that's around the happiness as well. You've got different levels of end user, haven't you? Because you'll have, I'm assuming that your system will allow for many different levels of seniority to be
Mhm.
using the system. So
Mhm.
I assume when you're looking at feedback and data, you're looking at different groups of customers and different levels of different access levels as well, and sort and trying to, in a way, please them all.
Yes, absolutely. So, for instance, for a PLG company, ultimately the economic buyer is still someone with a C or a VP title in their VP in their title. Um, an example of a personalized outreach to a CMO or a VP, who's your economic buyer, for instance, could be, hey, this week or this month, here is what the value your team got out of our platform was. they don't have to log into your platform, because let's admit it, most C-levels, the only tools they use are email and spreadsheets and slides, right? And Slack maybe. But you still have a personalized outreach play to help them understand the value that your product is accruing to their business, versus line level managers, versus people that are actually using your product every single day and being able to help them get more and more value, discover new features, discover new capabilities, improve how they use the tools so that they get more value out of it. Again, traditionally, this has been done through the customer success organizations in B2B SaaS companies. But that's really, really inefficient. That's honestly the equivalent of the Zulily example we were laughing about, where someone's manually changing the website to optimize your experience.
So, what I'm wondering, because whilst a lot of listeners and a lot of people watching are B2, certainly B2B, and a SaaS as well, I'm wondering what there is to learn for other industries here as well. And actually, I'm guessing that it's just data, using it, and actually having it in a structured way where you're able to understand it to make decisions. And talking of decisions, from what I can understand and having a read, where you can make big differences is not just in the customer happiness, but that then leads into things like revenue, increasing in revenue, of course, but also around things like better sales efficiency, better productivity in marketing. What just talk to me about some of the things there that on where you can make those efficiencies and that productivity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, the first part of your statement, I wanna add some color to, which is, to me, the lessons for any industry, whether that is SaaS or not SaaS, is often people use data to report on their business. They don't use data to make decisions every day. So if you're looking at your dashboards and you're not making any changes in the business based on what the dashboard's telling you, that's a pretty clear sign, regardless of what industry you are in, that you are simply using your data to report out what is happening, as opposed to optimize, turn the knobs and dials to change the outcomes, right? We are much more of the belief that data needs to be used for operational purposes, like things you do every day should change based on the feedback you're getting from your data. The second thing I'll say is that a lot of companies get stuck in their ability to use data because they believe that in order to use data, it must be 100% accurate and there must be no garbage in the data. Guess what? That is a utopia that does not exist. And if human intuition is flawed, so is data. So what we really want to be expecting from our data is not accuracy, precise accuracy, but directional accuracy, right? So please don't get stuck in this fallacy of my data must be perfect and pristine before it can be used for any operational decisions. So those are two things I would just say as words of advice for any company using data. In terms of the types of efficiency that I think about to optimize revenue generation, one, and this is one that gets missed out quite a lot. Companies need to focus on expansion revenue almost as much, if not more, than new business revenue. So, increasingly we are getting pressure where the initial contract value of SaaS businesses is becoming lower and lower and lower. Therefore, more and more revenue needs to come from expansion. How does that happen? Through great usage of product usage data, turning into customer lifecycle marketing campaigns. Like right now in B2B SaaS companies, the most powerful part of marketing is demand generation, not lifecycle marketing. Lifecycle marketing is what the C players do. And that needs to change because your customers are the best avenues of future revenue for you compared to those net new customers out there that you've never met. Another thing that we look at a lot is your ICP. So, for instance, we often your ideal customer profile.
I was going to ask you to elaborate. Don't worry.
Yes. So, for instance, I've noticed quite a lot that sales development reps, account executives who are going out and prospecting, looking for new companies to sell software to. If you do an ideal customer profile assessment, more than 50% of the accounts and the people within those accounts that they're reaching out to are not your ideal customer profile, which means it's a total waste of time, right? Now, any good manager should be able to monitor every single account that a sales rep is going out and prospecting. But let's be honest, who actually does that? Nobody, right? So if I'm a sales manager and I have 10 reps that report to me, and each rep is prospecting 200 accounts, these are 2,000 accounts I need to monitor to make sure the rep is this an ideal customer profile account? Are they talking to the right people in those accounts? Are they talking to them enough? Are they responding to their emails? Are they actually having high quality meetings? How am I supposed to do all of that manually? I can't. It's like, it's not a human scale problem. That's where solutions like Falcon essentially act as that monitor, looking at all the data to say, oh, 50% of the accounts you're prospecting you haven't even talked to in 30 days. Here are 3 accounts you have not sent a follow up email to. Your meeting quality score as a rep is 2 out of 5 because you don't ask good questions and you talk 70% of the time. Like, those are the types of operational uses of data that drive efficiency, which then improves your ability to generate revenue. And those are some of the things we do for our customers.
Well, I mean, I'm loving that use case. That's absolutely brilliant, and I can totally relate to it as well. There's a couple of things that I want to ask there, and one of them is I'd love another example of a different use case, maybe in the marketing arena.
Okay.
But before I get to that, I'm curious how you find business at the moment in terms of selling the product, because there's always going to be not just an investment of a financial investment, but also an investment of time to join all this data up.
Mm-hmm.
And what I know that you work in reasonably large companies, so we're sort of talking 500 staff to I think we were talking earlier 15,000 staff. In those sort of companies, is the appetite for decision makers to put their neck on the line and invest in a product like yours in the sort of hope? Of course, you've got case studies and you've got data to back things up, but how do you get them? How do you find? Is it difficult getting creating that demand for the investment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, we have several patents pending to make the ingestion of data a lot simpler and make the implementation time dramatically shorter than what you'd expect. So, for instance, for a typical Falcon customer, we deliver value 2 weeks after a contract is signed. 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And one of the ways in which we do that is we don't look at all data in the world because that makes it an unsolvable problem. Instead, we look at data sources that are pretty well established. For instance, if as a company we understand Salesforce and HubSpot as CRMs, we've covered 90% of the CRM market. We understand the data sets within HubSpot and Salesforce natively, which is why the implementation cost for us is so cheap there. Similarly, if we understand Outreach and SalesLoft as sales enablement tools, or Marketo and HubSpot as marketing automation tools, we natively understand them. We cover 70 to 80% of the marketing automation market for SaaS companies, right? So we're very selective about the data that we look at, and that really dramatically reduces the implementation footprint for our customers.
Yeah, I think if you're adding value within 2 weeks, my imagination was that the data would take quite a bit longer to start connecting up, but how you've explained it makes a lot of sense. A marketing use case, Mona.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I was just talking to a customer recently, so I'll share their marketing use case with you. I'll share 2 actually. One is, there's a marketing manager we are working with at a company, and she hosts events. And events are a great, they're expensive to do. They are a great source for lead generation. They are also a great source for advancing opportunities that are already pre-created, right? So if my sales team is talking to a big account, they will invite people who work at that company to my event, so that that will advance their consideration of our software, right? Now, the process of people attending an event, and then after that, the sales development team being able to follow up with each of those people within a 4-hour SLA of having attended the event, is all manual right now. We automate all of that. And we send a Slack alert to the sales development rep who is not meeting their SLA, saying, hey, by the way, there are still 30 people you've been assigned from this event that you haven't reached out to. And by the way, there are 20 people that you did reach out to, and they asked you for a meeting request that you haven't responded to. Without Falcon, how this happens is the marketing manager is going and knocking on doors saying, hey, can you please follow up on these leads? Because ultimately, her success is not gated on whether the event happened or not. It is gated on what the impact of that event was, which relies on the sales development team doing their job and following up in a timely way. When we automate this entire experience, the marketing manager can stop nagging, have peace of mind that follow-up will happen, and the sales development manager gets a timely alert, so that they're not being bothered by a person, they're being bothered by software, which is a lot less contentious. And their manager is getting a report that they can then use to coach the sales development managers who are not following up in a timely way to do so for the next event, right? So that's an interesting marketing example.
And the reports that you talked about there, or you were talking about things on Slack, etc. This, I assume, is so that you're not relying on certain key people to be logging into the system all the time, because you know that they don't. Is that right?
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So that's actually one of the things, my background's product and engineering, and a lot of people that don't have a product background assume when they're building a product that people have to log in for them to feel valuable, right? When you've been building products for a very long time, like I have, that doesn't matter. That's an egocentric view. That's not a customer centric view. So we try to push the insight to our end users where they are, which is in Slack, in email, in Teams, in PowerPoint decks, in Google Slides, in Salesforce, in HubSpot, in Outreach. For us, it's success if they don't log into Falcon.
Wow, that's quite a statement at the end there, Mona.
That's right.
Yeah, but it makes a lot of sense. Cool. I think it's fairly obvious, this, from what you've said, that how intelligence can really make a big difference in terms of efficiency, operations, and improve productivity in sales. So it's a bit of a no-brainer. So if I was a B2B SaaS company, maybe head of marketing, or even a CMO, CRO, wanted to speak to you, best going to the website, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to the website. It is Falkon, FALKON.ai. We couldn't afford the C as a starving young company 3 years ago when we started. Or just connect with me on LinkedIn, Mona Akmal.
I would highly recommend connecting with Mona on LinkedIn. I was stalking some of your posts, and they're certainly colourful and fun. And the great thing is you get some serious engagement as well.
That's right. I've actually been surprised. I'm such an introverted person that when my team was encouraging me to get my voice out there, I was very skeptical. But the LinkedIn community has been wonderful, and they've really encouraged me with their engagement.
I think it's just how you say, you're just sort of very, very straight, very real. And this is what I think. And if you don't like it,
That's true. That is true. That's true.
Absolutely brilliant. Really interesting. Thank you so much for joining us today, and explaining how data can make such a big difference. If you've been listening, if you've been watching, thank you for joining us as well. I've been Johnny Ross, fractional CMO. Mona, thank you so much for being here, and we'll
Thank
see
you,
you
John.
all soon. Take care.